And the next report will be basically on the same very alike topic, the case study of the use of social media for public relations and reputation management in a Canadian university. And we are hopefully right now going to talk to Sandra Braun. She is a professor from the University of Alabama in the USA who teaches public relations and crisis communication at Mountain Royal University in Calgary, Canada. And now it's midnight out there, but Professor Braun is ready to talk to us. We can see you very well, and hopefully we will be able to hear you. Hello.
Greetings from Canada. Good morning.
Good morning. Good night. We'll tell you in half an hour.
Yeah,
yes.
I'm going to be ready for bed when I'm done with this. Well, I'm Sandra Braun, and I teach public relations at Mount Royal University in Calgary, Canada. And I approach this a little bit like an academic paper, a case study. And I look at social media for public relations and reputation management at our particular university. So while we have our PowerPoint coming up. So there's our university, Mount Royal University. And as I said, this is an examination of the use of social media for public relations and reputation management at a Canadian university, which is basically my university. So when I look at the literature about the use of social media, it largely focuses its applications in pedagogy and learning. In fact, 80% of faculty surveyed in the United States use some form of social media in their classrooms. But what we don't really have very much in the literature is research about how universities and institutions of higher education are using social media for public relations purposes. What we do have is a little bit of information that tells us sort of what we intuitively know, that very often what happens in universities is that the various academic departments and units are posting their own pages and using their own social media to promote their own departments, and there isn't a tremendous amount of central controls. So this is a case study of Mount Royal, of course I said my university, Mount Royal in Calgary, Canada. And just so you get a visual about what we're talking about Western Canada, Calgary, Alberta, and I have a little arrow there that points to approximately where we're located. We were founded in 1910, so we just celebrated our 100th anniversary. We're sort of a small university. We have 15,000 students, and 5,000 of them are full-time, and we have about 480 full-time faculty. So having close relationships with our students is one of our priorities and one of our distinctives. Anytime universities are surveyed in Canada, MRU always rises to the top as high scores in student satisfaction and active learning. And so our relationship with our students is very, very important. So social media for us is a way that we can fulfill our mission to have closer relationships with our students. And our social media journey sort of starts with Karen Richards, who we call our word-of-mouth marketing strategist. And when Facebook first came out in 2005, of course, social media became very popular. And many universities, at least in the West here, were somewhat reluctant to get on the bandwagon to use it, and quite wary of it because there was a feeling of not having control over conversation. But in 2007, under Karen Richards' direction, we at MRU started this social media journey. And we started with Facebook, which we felt was good for building a sense of community amongst our students. And today we have about 8,000 followers. And there's our link there if anybody after the presentation wants to look at social media. So from there, we moved to Twitter about a year later. And we found that Twitter was good for more for external audiences. Facebook seemed to be very good for internal audiences and building community. And Twitter reached a bunch of stakeholders that went beyond Facebook, political parties, environmental groups, media groups, education groups and anybody that was interested in what our students were doing and what this age group was doing. So we've used Twitter to show the breadth of activity that happens at MRU. We have about 8,000 followers on our Twitter account. From Twitter, we then gravitated to LinkedIn. And this channel has been a good source for us to post our professional presence and for faculty to post their professional backgrounds. The audience for LinkedIn is different than the audience for Facebook. It's more of a professional audience, and it attracts people who want to know more about our faculty. It's a great source for business purposes, for career, and for donor contacts. We were finding that many departments inside of our university were starting to want to do their own videos, and in response to this, we were faced with the question of how do we allow people to express themselves and promote their departments and yet maintain brand messaging and reputation. So what Karen did was start our own YouTube channel, and all of the departments funnel their video through a centralized channel, and the videos are screened to make sure that the message communicates the core brand of MRU, which basically is building student relationships and having face-to-face interaction with students and being student-centered. From YouTube, we then gravitated to Instagram, and we did do these one at a time. What we found was that our students were using Instagram, so we decided we would use Instagram. So it provides an opportunity for students to share what they're doing, and Richards and some of her people will capture moments around MRU and post them, and she will like other students' photos, and students often respond and participate and say they really feel like they're heard or listened to because somebody actually responded to one of their posts. And so we use it to actually communicate and interact with the students one at a time and to build that relationship with students. And we have 500 users and are growing daily. So now between all of these various social media, we now have a community of about 25,000, which for us, we think is wonderful. So in building this community, we've established two guiding principles and philosophy. Number one, our philosophy is that we would use social media for relationship building with our students and not to sell things. We wanted to use the public relations principle of two-way symmetry, which means a balance of communication from the organization to the audience and the audience back to us. And in a spirit of mutual hearing and sharing and cooperation and adjustment. And then we also decided that we wouldn't simply just grow for the sake of growing, but that we would grow carefully and steadily, and we would think about each medium before we embarked and proceeded to add a social media channel. So looking at our first philosophy, two-way symmetry, it's noted very well in the public relations literature as a way to build relationships by making mutual adjustments. Communication flows in two directions between an organization and its publics, and both sides are expected to adjust and be marked by some compromise. So one example of this that we used social media for was we were noting some complaints on the MRU Facebook page by students that there weren't enough study spaces on campus to quietly read and study. So we monitored this conversation and we struck a committee to investigate. We spoke with the students, we got their exact complaint from them, and we examined their study habits to try to determine what was happening. And we discovered that the students weren't really going out of the building in which their program was located, and so they weren't always aware of all of the many spaces on campus that they could go to study. So we went around campus and we cataloged all of the study spaces, and we categorized them as quiet, multi-purpose, or individual, and we posted them on our website, and we communicated assertively to students about where these study spaces were and what kind of spaces they were. We also created more quiet spaces in response to students who said that we needed more quiet areas for them to study. So this is an example of using social media for two-way symmetry. That is, not just to get our message out to students, but to be responsive to their needs and to solve problems. And then our second philosophy was a thoughtful progression. and I love this quote by Ms. Richards, the number one problem that people can fall into is to just jump on the social media bandwagon, just to jump on it and not to carefully weigh out the effects of each channel. Certain channels are simply good for certain things. So for instance, Pinterest is an e-commerce site, so you won't find MRU there because our philosophy is not to sell things, but to use social media channels that build relationships. So it's important to know exactly what each social media channel is for and what it can do, and whether it fits your philosophy, and to integrate it thoughtfully and carefully. And so some tips for success that we feel have worked for us is, first of all, we have a philosophy of what it is we really want that our social media to do for us. Number two, avoid the temptation to simply jump at every channel. Realize that every channel represents about 5 to 7 hours of extra work for someone. So at our university, we have a lot of budget constraints, so it's hard for us to just simply add social media channels because we're just going to have a lot of social media graveyards because we don't have the staff to properly maintain it. Also, it's very important to develop some social media guidelines, and I've actually provided for you as an appendix in my paper the social media guidelines for MRU. And we don't have time to go through them here, but if someone has a question, I'd be happy to chat about it. Another thing that's worked well for us is to be very strict about having a social media calendar, knowing what all our social media channels are, and planning our posts well in advance, because writer's block can creep up very quickly. So we will look at all of the events at the university, we'll plot them on a calendar, graduation day, first day of school, finals week, and we'll plan our posts to coincide with what's going on at the university so that we can communicate effectively with the students and know what they're going through. Lastly, be responsive. Social media is a two-way communications vehicle. It's meant to be participative and interactive. It's meant to be two-way. Two-way means that we're not just sending out messages to our students, but that we're hearing messages from them. And we're not just hearing them to say that, oh, we heard, but we're hearing them because we want to solve problems and we want to create a satisfied student. And of course, the principle of two-way symmetry is that each of the parties makes adjustment wherever they can. So a university that's committed to two-way symmetry needs to be committed to the fact that sometimes they're going to have to solve some problems and make some adjustments. Some of the challenges when one is moving into social media, sometimes one can be fighting for administrative support, but all you really need is just a few key people on board to proceed with your social media plan. Also, sometimes the departments can be fairly resistant because they want to control all of their own messages and all of their own media. But once you sit down with them and you share with them that it's going to cost them time and energy and personnel, about 5 to 7 hours a week, they're kind of happy to, to let you help them out with that. We're right now encountering issues of proper conduct and appropriate speech and spam on our social media channels. So this is an area that we're growing into right now. And also one should be aware of a potential abuse by universities to collect and use data for purposes that maybe we shouldn't be doing. So venturing into this social media landscape, one must weigh the risks and benefits. There certainly are risks because you lose control of some things, but the benefits are definitely, we have found a stronger community with our students, a stronger like factor, and our student satisfaction and like scores are always very, very high in national surveys. And of course, we hope we never use this, but we realize the benefit of social media and the power of social media to be able to respond to campus crises. If there is God forbid, a campus shooting or something that's going on, we would be able very quickly to get the message out and to direct our students and to communicate with them about what is going on. So that is my sharing with you about our particular journey into the integration and use of social media at our particular
Thank you very much. It was very interesting and very informative because we have similar problem right now. We're trying to build this communication in social media, and we're struggling with finding the ways to do that. So I have questions from my colleague, several questions actually, and we'll post them online, and maybe you will find time to answer them later online. But one of them, for example, what is the tone of this communication in social media? Is it official, or is it more like on the students level? Like how do you communicate? What is this? Well, the tone of communication. How is it different from other channels?
Yeah. Um, well, I would say whatever the message needs to be. So if it's graduation day, I mean, we'll say, you know, great job, students. It's graduation day. Congratulations. So I think we try to pick a tone that is suitable to the message. So if we say something like, the parking lot number 4 will be closed on this weekend, we're going to take a formal tone. But if it is something happy and something that students are glad of, like the last day of school, we'll certainly participate in their joy with them, of course. So the tone suits
You were
the
talking
message
about
and the
department
situation, I think.
cooperation. How do you communicate with the departments? Do all the departments have their own Facebook pages? I don't know, YouTube channels. How does it happen up there in the university?
Well, the reason we ventured into social media is because we were noticing that all departments were doing their own thing. And so the university was concerned about, well, what does that mean? Are we gonna, are we losing sort of control of our brand? And our brand is really face-to-face and personal with the MRU student. So so we approach the departments. It's diplomacy. We don't want to take this opportunity from them, but we do share with them that there's a significant investment of time and energy, and we do have a centralized location, and we also have some tech support people who are committed and dedicated to this task, and that we will help produce whatever it is they need and work with them and support them. So we find that once we sit down and speak with them and just share that reality with them, that they're more than happy. As long as they're happy with the end product, they're happy.
Is there just one person assigned to this duty to deal with this Facebook page, or there are several people and they just like students and stuff, or just stuff? What is the proportion of people and how many of them are there on the team?
Well, right now, it's basically Karen Richards. She's our word of mouth marketing strategist. And I believe she employs just a few students to help work with her. But she is sort of the key glue that holds it all together and that knows exactly what's going on. So one person full-time, 5 channels, and that keeps her full-time busy. So that's about all that she can do unless we would expand that. And hire some additional help. I think that's pretty much all that can be done.
And how do you cope? How do you
anyway.
deal with negative feedback? Is there any? If there are some comments, negative comments, do you delete them? I don't know, or how do you do that?
Yeah. No, well, what we'll do, well, the purpose here is not to control speech. The purpose here is to solve problems and build student satisfaction. And so the negative feedback is important. And part of Karen's job, of course, is to monitor conversations and to see what students are really saying. And she will actually jump into conversations and she'll say, this is MRU speaking, and we understand that you're not very happy about the study spaces on campus. Is there something you think we can do to help you? And students are very surprised that the university, number 1, is listening, and number 2 is actually talking to them, and number 3 is asking how they can help. So that really helps foster a feeling of trust, and that's what we want to do. We want our students to be happy. We realize we don't always do things as well as we could, And so we're looking for this kind of feedback so that we can be a better university, because we know these students will have brothers and sisters. They'll share with their friends about their experience with MRU. So as I said, it's a relationship building tool. And one way to promote a relationship is to solve problems together toward mutual satisfaction. So yes, Karen does monitor, and she does look for negative feedback, because our first goal is to solve a problem. And if there are any issues, we do have social media guidelines that talks about things like avoiding slander if you're going to use our channels. So if there's any laws that are being broken, or if there are any MRU guidelines that are being threatened, we'll let the student know, hey, you know, this is an MRU channel and our social media guidelines are posted. And, you know, one thing that we have on them is that we would maintain confidentiality of other people. So, you know, do you really want to post that picture? So we will just challenge the student to think it through and to grow from that, you know, and to promote positive relationships that way. So, you know, there can be some touchy issues. We haven't had too many, but the more that we use the social media, we're starting to see that some of these cases are, they're getting more and more, and it's just something that we're going to have to grow and learn with. And I don't know what the answers are, but I don't think that we're unique in this struggle, and I think that there are people writing
Do they
about
meet
it
your
and sharing their
expectations of
experiences, and I think that
growing
we'll all just kind of grow
mostly?
through it.
Do they?
Mostly, I think, yeah, mostly. I mean, they're rather surprised that the university cares, you know, and once they're sort of actually confronted, you know, people will say, oh, okay, all right, I hear you. You know, not every case is, and I don't know all the cases, but I'm pretty certain that they don't all turn out happy, but I wouldn't say that we're flooded with them, at least not at this point. I'm hoping there aren't any real bad ones. But if someone wants to chat with me further, I can get some specifics for someone after. If you have a specific kind of problem that you're thinking about, I can get some information.
We have time for one more question. Do you work with other target audiences through with the help of social media, not only with students? What other audiences do you work with, if any? In terms of building your reputation.
You know, I'm not entirely. Reputation. Well, all the audiences that I talked about, like for example, LinkedIn builds our professional presence. We'll have our professors have a LinkedIn page, and you know, promotes other people will want to know about our professors. Twitter helps us with our donors. We're always posting tweets on there about the meaningful things that we're doing in the community to help attract donors. So yes, we do think about very consciously about what we're posting on each medium and why we're posting. So definitely Twitter is our external.
Thank you very much.
And LinkedIn
Thank
is
you
our
very much
external
for your
channels.
Very prompt response always, for your participation, and hopefully we will meet you maybe next year here. You have your personal page, and we'll post everything in your video and the presentation, today's presentation, online. And maybe we'll have questions. I think we will have more questions, and if you find time again, please come to visit our website, and maybe you find time to respond.
I'd be happy to share. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you,
for
and
this
good night.
opportunity. Yes, and it's so great to meet everybody else from other countries. Thank you very, very much.